Hello, everyone. Welcome to 1972. This is another in my series where I go through each year and tell you my favorite album, my favorite song, my favorite movie, and my favorite television show. I started in 1950. We're all the way up to 1972. A couple things I will point out is that TV series are only eligible their debut season because some series ran a long time. And also, I have to have a physical copy before I can pick it. Favorite album of 1972. My fourth runner-up is indeed Deep Purple's Machine Head. This is my favorite Deep Purple album with Smoke on the Water, a song I never get tired of. I know some people do. It has one of the best driving tunes and opening tracks with Highway Star. It's also got the wonderful tunes like Lazy and Maybe I'm a Leo. And they also go a little sci-fi with Space Truckin'. Great Deep Purple album. Now my third runner-up, and it's Van Morrison, St. Dominic's Preview. You know it must be a great year if I've got Van Morrison as in third place. But Van mixes it up with this album. It's got the great R&B of Jackie Wilson, I'm in Heaven When You Smile, the great jazzy pop tune with Redwood Tree, and two wonderful long tracks, Listen to the Lion and Almost Independence Day. Also has the great title track. So Van Morrison, St. Dominic's Preview, my third runner-up. My second runner-up from David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Now, this is a loosely developed concept album about Ziggy Stardust, the rock star sent down to Earth. It has many great tunes like Ziggy Stardust, 5 Years, about the Earth's impending doom, Moon Age Daydream, where Mick Ronson's guitar work is a highlight, and you also get Starman and Suffragette City, just a classic. Ziggy Stardust, David Bowie. And my first runner-up is Sail Away, Randy Newman. Lyrics inside there. But yeah, by now many of you know that I'm a big Randy Newman fan, and this is my favorite album by him. He takes on some tough subjects like slavery in song Sail Away, religion in song God, world politics with political science. His lyrics often have to be taken as sarcasm, as he often means the opposite of what he was singing in songs like He Gives Us All His Love. But fantastic album by Randy Newman, Sail Away, my first runner-up. My favorite album, 1976, is, unfortunately, I only have it on CD. One of these days I'll get it on vinyl. And that's Exile on Main Street. Now, this is my favorite Rolling Stones album and is their most raw, a gin-fueled masterpiece. Well, probably more than gin, actually. It's a double album with a wide variety of tunes, rock and roll, blues, country, and soul, with some absolute classics like Tumblin' Dice, Rocks Off, Let It Loose, Shine a Light, and Happy. Peak songwriting by Mick and Keith. You also have Mick Taylor on guitar, Nicky Hopkins on piano, Bobby Keys on sax, which can't be overlooked. A lot of other musicians helped out as there were several recording venues to make this album. Just a classic, my favorite Rolling Stones album, and my favorite album of 1972, Exile on Main Street. Before I say my favorite songs of 1972, I also wanted to point out that I'm currently doing a series on Rich Strickler's channel with he and Brian from Massey's Main Entertainment and Doc, where we picked our 50 favorite songs for each year. We just did 1976, 77, I can't remember. I'll put a link below. And sometimes, you know, my songs from this series may not match exactly with that series, as we get an aggregate score, and some of the songs I would pick, none of them would probably pick, so that's how that goes. But anyway, I'll put a link below. It's a fun series I'm doing with those, so if you want to check it out. Also, if you want to check out earlier years on my channel, you can do that as well. So anyway, let's get to my favorite songs of 1972. And now for my favorite song of 1972, the fourth runner-up from Stevie Wonder. And it's the song Superstition. Now, it's a wonderful Stevie Wonder tune off this Talking Book album with a kicking horn section and Stevie on drums, clavinet, and Moog bass. It also has one of my all-time favorite lines in "When you believe in things that you don't understand, then you suffer. Superstition ain't the way." My third runner-up is one of our rock and roll pioneers, Jerry Lee Lewis, and his album Who's Gonna Play This Old Piano? Of course, this was during his country period. Jerry Lee Lewis made some great country albums, and this might be his best, with the highlight being Think About It, Darlin', which is the first song on side 2. Yes, it was written by Jerry Foster and Bill Rice, a Nashville songwriting duo that wrote a ton of songs that people covered, many by Jerry Lee. This one has Jerry Lee at his self-referencing best. Also on this album, piano is the one his parents bought him when he was 8 years old. Jerry Lee Lewis, Think About It, Darling. Second runner-up, a song I referenced before, He Gives Us All His Love, from Randy Newman and his album Sail Away. I first heard this song in the movie Cold Turkey, which starred Dick Van Dyke, about a town that was trying to quit smoking. It was unique in that you knew he meant the opposite of what he was singing. I'm talking about Randy Newman. No one can inject satire through song like he can. And it's a sparsely arranged song, but has some haunting string section. It's just a fantastic song. Randy Newman, He Gives Us All His Love. And my first runner-up for 1972 is by The Kinks, and it's the song Celluloid Heroes, last song on side 2. This was a 2-record set. Everybody's in Showbiz from The Kinks. I'm a big fan of the cinema, because as you know, and especially the golden age, the 30s through 50s. And this song is kind of an homage to the actors and actresses from that time period. It references Greta Garbo, Rudolph Valentino, Bela Lugosi, Betty Davis. And then you need to get this original version, as some collections leave off the verse that mentions Marilyn Monroe, George Sanders, and Mickey Rooney. Great tune, Celluloid Heroes, from Everybody's in Showbiz by The Kinks. Song from 1972. It's by the Rolling Stones off Exile on Main Street. Fifth song on here, yes, that's right, Tumblin' Dice. This is a rock and roll classic with Keith Richards' crunchy guitar, Charlie Watts' loose drumming, and Jagger's somewhat garbled singing. You can hear gambling phrases here and there. I've never known most of the words, but it hasn't hindered me, as I love this song's energy, and it's my favorite Rolling Stones song. Tumblin' Dice, my favorite song from 1972. For my favorite film of 1972, the fourth runner-up is the French film Un Flic, which translates to A Cop. It's Jean-Pierre Melville's final film, and although it doesn't rank up there with his classics, there's a lot to like. We see Alain Delon right here as the cop, this time kind of a Dirty Harry-like cop, pursuing a group that did a partially botched bank robbery, and then they pull off an elaborate heist on a train. There's some bad model work in this film, but fine performances. And of course, male camaraderie has always been an important part of Melville films, and it sure is in this one as well. You also get Catherine Deneuve. So, Un Flic, that's my fourth runner-up. My third runner-up is Play It Again, Sam. Hilarious Woody Allen film with Herbert Ross as the director, where Woody plays a film critic obsessed with Humphrey Bogart and the film Casablanca. You get to see him navigating the dating scene after his wife leaves him. And there's some extremely funny scenes where Woody tries to impress his dates. It also stars Diane Keaton, right here, as his best friend's wife, and Tony Roberts, who we lost earlier this year, as his best friend. Yeah, great film, hilarious. Played Against Sam, Woody Allen. My second runner-up is the underrated Frenzy, which I have in this Alfred Hitchcock Blu-ray collection. Fine thriller from Hitchcock, his second to last feature, which shows he could have adapted well to the more realistic modern-day suspense thriller. There are topics and situations that he could have only hinted about in earlier films that he puts on full display here. It has a familiar Hitchcock narrative of an innocent man on the run, this time accused of a string of sex murders. Fine black humor as well. Alfred Hitchcock's Frenzy. First runner-up from 1972, Deliverance, directed by John Boorman. There we get Burt Reynolds and Jon Voight on the cover. It seems that this movie is best known for the banjo music and the squeal like a pig scene, but it's just a great adventure thriller where a group of river rafters have to rely on their human instinct in order to survive. It's based on a novel by James Dickey, who also wrote the screenplay. One interesting thing about this and why I kind of have a soft spot for it is that for a while there I was selling things on eBay. I sold a Life magazine, and I referenced that there was an article about James Dickey in there. And who should buy it? James Dickey's son. Deliverance, my first runner-up. I'm sure many of you have figured out what my number one movie is going to be. My favorite film of 1972 is the movie The Godfather, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. This has Godfather 1, 2, and 3 in this package. One of the greatest movies of all time, chock full of classic performances. The opening sequence at The Godfather, Marlon Brando's daughter's wedding, is a masterful job of filmmaking, introducing all the major players and giving the film a richness in cinematography and character development unequaled in any other film. We become invested in a group of gangsters. There may not be a better crafted film than this one. The Godfather, my favorite film of 1972. Now for my favorite television series from 1972. One that I'm giving honorable mention that didn't quite make my list is The Protectors, starring Robert Vaughn. This is a British series, kind of in the Saint James Bond vein. I think this shows how this is a strong year. So anyway, my fourth runner-up is the TV series Search. Now, this was a show of international intrigue about private investigators / spies who work for the World Securities Corporation with implanted audio receivers and tiny camera units that were worn on their person. And this info goes back to an elite staff. It had rotating stars as the agents. You got Hugh O'Brien, Tony Franciosa, and Doug McClure. And Burgess Meredith played the director. Just a fun, unique series, Search. My third runner-up is the series The Streets of San Francisco, another of the many 70s detective shows, this time with Carl Malden as the grizzled veteran teamed with the young inspector Michael Douglas. Of course, in San Francisco, detectives were called inspectors. If you saw the movie Dirty Harry, you would have recognized that. But anyway, just a great camaraderie between the two. The age difference between them gives the show some nice interchanges. Streets of San Francisco. My third runner-up is Banachek, one of my favorite of the rotating mystery movie series. George Peppard plays a suave insurance investigator that is called in for the most difficult of cases. Banachek was always able to figure out how seemingly impossible heists were committed, all the while dispensing humorous Polish proverbs and romancing the women. Just a really fun series, Banachek with George Peppard. The top two series this year are absolute classics, and it was a tough decision, but hey, these are my favorites, so this is how it came out. And sorry to a lot of people, but yeah, MASH ended up being my first runner-up. Based on the movie of the same name, this show became a powerhouse. It has the same irreverence as the movie, maybe a little tempered, but just as successful in its humor and outlook. These characters really became a part of our lives. Hawkeye, Trapper, Hot Lips, Frank Burns. It was really funny. He was a classic. Klinger, and just made this a fantastic series. MASH, my first one. My number one show from 1972 is indeed The Bob Newhart Show. Now, I've always had a soft spot for this show and Bob Newhart's unique brand of humor. He was most often the straight man in the humorous sequences, As his role as a psychiatrist was an opportunity to interact with his idiosyncratic patients. His next door neighbor, airline pilot Howard Borden, played by Bill Daly of I Dream of Jeannie fame, and his wife, played by Suzanne Plachette, also provided many laughs, as did his secretary and the dentist, and I can't think of his name right offhand, but there he is, though. But anyway, just my favorite from 1972, hilarious television series, The Bob Newhart Show.